The Darwin Prize has never been about chance. In most stories, everything is decided by a single second of overconfidence, the moment when a person is sure that nothing will happen to them. These people did not plan to die. They just ignored the obvious danger, tested the limits of common sense, or tried to prove something to others. This video contains 6 stories where the fatal outcome was not malicious intent, but a stupid decision made without a second chance. The incident occurred on August 14, 2018 in California, near one of the operating hydroelectric power plants, the technical area of which was formerly closed to visitors, but in fact has long since become an unofficial place for extreme photos. Emily Carter was 23 years old. She was studying media communications, working as a freelancer in social media, and took her online presence seriously. For her, it wasn't just photos that were important, but shots with a sense of risk, from the edge, from a height, from places where not everyone dares to go. Her feed already contained pictures from the roofs of buildings, industrial facilities, and abandoned structures. That day, she arrived at the dam with 2 friends who assured her that they had been here before and that the main thing was not to panic and not to make sudden movements. The entrance to the territory was not physically blocked. Only a few warning signs informed about the danger: slippery surface, strong water flow, and prohibition of unauthorized persons. None of those present took these signs seriously. According to witnesses, the weather was warm, but the humidity remained high due to the constant circulation of water. The concrete surfaces of the structure had a thin, damp coating, almost invisible to the eye. It was this detail that would later become key to the investigation's conclusions. Emily walked along the fence for a few minutes, choosing an angle, and then climbed over the metal barrier on her own, holding her phone in her hand. She took a few test shots, turning her back on the technical channel where the water was moving at high speed. The footage captured on the phone shows that she was not focused on the surface under her feet, but on the composition of the shot. At a certain point, she decided to step to the side to capture more of the water flow in the shot. The sole of the sneaker lost its grip on the wet concrete. At first, it looked like a simple slip, but the slope of the structure and the lack of any support left no chance to quickly regain her balance. Emily tried to hold on, instinctively putting out her hand, but the surface did not provide traction. She fell down into the technical channel. The fall lasted a few seconds. A stream of water immediately picked up her body and pulled her away from the place of the fall. Her friends, who remained behind the fence, did not realize the scale of the tragedy at first, believing that she had simply fallen below the level. It was only a few seconds later, when they lost sight of her, that panic set in. One of them tried to run along the canal, while the other called the emergency services. The rescuers arrived in about 20 minutes, but the working conditions were difficult. The narrow design of the canal, high water speed, and limited access to the technical area. The search operation lasted several hours. Emily Carter's body was found much further downstream. The official cause of death was drowning as a result of falling from a height into the technical water flow zone. The investigation did not reveal any malfunctions in the operation of the hydroelectric facility. The report specifically noted that all warning signs were installed in accordance with the standards. The only factor that led to the death was the decision to go behind the fence for the sake of a shot. The phone she used to take the photo was never found. None of the images from that day have been posted online. On July 2, 2016, in the suburbs of a small town in Texas, in a typical private sector neighborhood with detached garages and narrow driveways, Michael Reed was 31 years old. He worked as an auto mechanic in a small shop, had a reputation for being hands-on, and often took on jobs that others considered too difficult or dangerous. Among his friends, he repeatedly said that most safety instructions are written by people who have never done anything in practice. On the eve of Independence Day, Michael decided to make his own fireworks. He wasn't interested in store-bought fireworks. He wanted something more powerful, louder, and, in his words, real. The idea came after watching several videos on the internet where people demonstrated homemade pyrotechnic devices. The comments under these videos often said that everything looked dangerous, but Michael perceived this as an exaggeration. He was sure that nothing could go wrong with his experience. For several days, he collected materials, disassembled old firecrackers, collected gunpowder, and bought small metal elements that he believed would enhance the effect of the explosion. He stored all of this in his garage, which served as both a workshop and a toolbox. The garage was closed, without a ventilation system, but Michael did not pay attention to this. He thought he was working quickly and nothing critical would happen. On the evening of July 2nd, he was alone in the garage. Neighbors later recalled seeing lights on there almost until nightfall, but did not attach any importance to it because Michael often worked late. According to the investigation, about half an hour before the explosion, he finished assembling the device and decided to check the fuse. This was a critical mistake. Instead of taking the structure outdoors, or at least moving to a safe distance, Michael stayed inside, keeping the device on his desk. Vapors from the chemical components had already accumulated in the closed room, but he did not realize it. The explosion occurred suddenly, without a warning flash. The shockwave knocked the garage door off its hinges, and the dull sound could be heard several blocks away. Neighbors initially thought it was a gas explosion or a car accident. One of them saw smoke coming out of the garage and called the emergency services. When firefighters arrived, the garage was already partially destroyed. Inside, they found Michael with no signs of life. Doctors pronounced him dead on the spot. The cause was the combined effect of the blast wave and the fragments of the improvised device. Investigators quickly determined that no factory fireworks were used at the time of the explosion. They found powder residue, metal fragments, and tools he had been using in the garage. There were no signs of tampering or power grid malfunctions. All the evidence pointed to the explosion being the result of self-made pyrotechnics in violation of basic safety rules. Michael's relatives later said that he did not consider himself a risky person and sincerely thought he was in control of the situation. But in this story, it was not evil will or coincidence that was decisive, but confidence in his own infallibility. One locked garage, one homemade fuse, and one quick check were enough to end the holiday plan in death before the festivities even began. On September 9, 2019, in Ohio, near an industrial area where a freight railroad line ran through the city, dozens of freight trains ran through the city every day. Tyler Brooks was 27 years old. He didn't have a stable job and earned money with odd jobs, but he invested most of his time and energy in his YouTube channel. His content was built around risk, dangerous challenges, staying near infrastructure facilities, ideas that always teetered on the edge of the permissible. The channel's audience was small, but grew slowly and steadily. This is what made Tyler constantly increase the degree of danger. He believed that one really strong video could dramatically change his situation. The idea of racing with the train came to him a few weeks before the tragedy. He had already shot videos near passenger train tracks, but this time he decided to use a freight train, convincing himself that it was moving more slowly. Tyler studied train schedules, browsed railroad fan forums, and read comments from people who claimed to make it across the tracks without any problems. All of this gave him a false sense of control. On the day of the shoot, he arrived at the location alone, without a cameraman or friends. He mounted the camera on a tripod so that the tracks, himself, and the approaching train were in the frame. The video was supposed to look like a test of reaction and precise timing. Tyler checked the shot several times, walking along the tracks, listening for the sound. When he heard the horn and saw the train in the distance, he had the feeling that he had more than enough time. What he hadn't taken into account was the optical illusion of the speed of large objects. The freight train seemed distant and slow, but in fact, it was moving at a much higher speed than he had anticipated. The camera captured Tyler standing on the side of the road, taking a deep breath, and nodding to himself as if to confirm his readiness. He started running when the train was dangerously close. He crossed the first rails without any problems, but something went wrong in the middle of the track. Maybe he tripped over the ballast. Maybe he just lost his pace for a moment. That moment was enough. The train was already too close to stop or run away. According to the investigation, the driver applied emergency braking as soon as he saw the man on the tracks, but was physically unable to avoid the collision. The impact was fatal. The camera continued filming for several seconds after the incident, recording only the shaking of the tripod and the sound of the braking system. The recording was not made public, but was used during the investigation. Police and railroad officials arrived at the scene. Train traffic on this section was stopped for several hours. Investigators quickly identified the deceased and the cause of the accident. There were no technical malfunctions, no outside interference. It all came down to one decision: to try to overtake the train for the sake of video. Later, Tyler's relatives told reporters that the day before he had spoken about the last chance to catch a wave. For him, it was not a joke or improvisation, but a calculated risk that he believed would pay off. But the physics of motion leaves no room for creativity. A train cannot stop quickly, and a person cannot run faster than tens of tons of metal. In this story, it was not a technical failure or someone's evil will that was fatal, but a misconception of control over the situation. One miscalculation and 1 second of delay were fatal. The incident took place on June 18, 2015, in Wyoming, in a national park visited by millions of tourists every year. Robert Hayes was 34 years old. He arrived at the park with a group of friends after a few days of traveling through the western states. This was not his first trip to the outdoors, and it was this confidence in his own experience that played a key role. The night before, the group stayed at a bar near the entrance to the park, where Robert drank alcohol without considering it a problem. In the morning, they went on a sightseeing trip by car, stopping at popular photo spots. When a bison appeared on the side of the road, the traffic slowed down. Such scenes were common for this park. Animals often came out close to the roads, and most tourists were limited to taking photos from a safe distance. There were clear warnings along the road to keep a distance of at least a few dozen meters. Robert saw these signs, but did not take them seriously. He got out of the car, first to take a few pictures, and then to get closer. According to witnesses, he was joking, trying to get the animals' attention, and demonstrating confidence that he was in control of the situation. Alcohol dulled the sense of danger and created a false sense of courage. At first glance, the bison looked calm and motionless, which further strengthened Robert's belief that there was no threat. But for a wild animal, closing the distance is perceived quite differently. When Robert came critically close, the bison reacted sharply. Further events unfolded in seconds. Witnesses saw the animal make a rapid leap forward. Robert did not have time to react. The first blow knocked him down, and the second one inflicted fatal injuries. People around him started screaming. Some tried to run away, some called the rangers. After the attack, the bison stopped and walked away, not pursuing the others. The rescue services arrived quickly, but it was already impossible to help. Doctors pronounced the bison dead on the spot from injuries incompatible with life. Rangers blocked a section of the road to calm the animal and ensure the safety of other visitors. The investigation revealed no violations in the actions of the park services. All warning signs were in place, and the rules of behavior with wild animals were clearly communicated to tourists. The report specifically noted that the bison acted instinctively, reacting to a threat to its personal space. Responsibility for the tragedy was placed entirely on the deceased. Robert's friends later said that he did not consider himself reckless and simply did not think it was really dangerous. For him, the bison was part of the landscape, not a wild animal weighing several hundred kilograms. This story once again showed that national parks are not zoos or photo ops. Wildlife does not make warning gestures, and does not leave time to correct a mistake. One extra action, one step forward, and complete confidence in one's own safety became final. New York, November 3, 2017, in an old residential building in Manhattan, built in the middle of the last century. The building had undergone many cosmetic repairs, but the elevator equipment remained obsolete and often broke down. Laura Mendez was 29 years old. She worked as a sales manager in a large company, used to a busy schedule and constant control over her time. Waiting was one of the most unpleasant states for her, and it was this trait that played a fatal role that evening. Lori was coming home late after a hard day at work. There were hardly any people in the building, and when the elevator stopped between floors, she took it as just another annoying but minor malfunction. She first used the dispatcher call button. The operator answered and told her that the technician was on his way, but would arrive in about 20 to 30 minutes due to traffic. According to the standard procedure, Laura should have been advised to stay in the cab, not to try to get out on her own and wait for help. There was no physical threat to her life at the time. The cabin was fixed, the ventilation was working, and communication was maintained. But for Lori, the thought of waiting in a confined space caused severe irritation. According to her family, she did not suffer from claustrophobia, but she could not stand the restrictions. A few minutes after talking to the dispatcher, she started looking for a way to get out on her own. The internet is full of videos of people demonstrating how to safely get out of a stuck elevator, and Lori knew about it. She pressed the emergency button and then tried to open the door manually. In older models, this sometimes worked. The doors gave way, and she was exposed to a narrow space between the car and the floor. She saw the edge of the concrete floor and thought she could climb over. What she didn't know was that the system could restart at any time or change the position of the cabin through automatic leveling. These processes are not felt by passengers and often occur without warning. According to technical expertise, it was at this moment that the elevator received a signal to reactivate. Lori, holding the edge of the opening with her hands, began to shift her body weight forward. At that moment, the car moved downward. The movement was short, but sufficient for the person between the floors to be in the critical zone. Everything happened instantly. Residents of several apartments heard the screams, and then someone immediately called the emergency services. When the technician and rescuers arrived, the situation was already irreversible. Doctors pronounced him dead on the spot. The investigation lasted several weeks. They checked the operation of the elevator system, the actions of the dispatchers, and the maintenance of the building. No gross violations were found. The elevator did break down, but it was operating within emergency protocols. The main factor was an attempt to get out of the elevator on his own. The final report emphasized that waiting for help was a safe option and did not pose a direct threat to life. Lori's family subsequently filed a civil lawsuit against the management company, but the court dismissed it, citing the results of the examination. The tragedy was yet another example of how the desire to save time and refusal to wait for a few minutes can lead to irreversible consequences. The elevator was not a trap and did not pose a threat to passengers as long as they followed the instructions. But one attempt to solve everything on their own turned a simple technical malfunction into a deadly situation. In this story, there was no unexpected collapse, no malicious intent, or extreme conditions. Only impatience, overconfidence, and the belief that this could not happen to her. The incident occurred on February 21, 2020, in Minnesota, on a small freshwater lake near a residential area where locals often went out on the ice in winter for walking, fishing, or just relaxing. Daniel Forsyth was 41 years old. He worked in logistics, had a stable job, a family, and 2 children. He was known as a calm, reasonable person who was not prone to extreme actions. That is why what happened that day seemed particularly absurd to many. The winter of 2020 was unstable. Sharp temperature fluctuations, short thaws, and repeated frosts made the ice on many bodies of water unpredictable. The local authorities repeatedly warned about the danger of going out on the lakes, but no official ban was imposed. Daniel came to the lake with a few friends in the afternoon to spend time outdoors. At first, they stayed near the shore, discussing whether to go further. Some of the local fishermen were already returning from the ice and warned that the surface was thinner than a week ago. These warnings were heard by everyone, but perceived differently. Daniel thought the danger was exaggerated. He saw that the ice near the shore could support the weight of several people and concluded that the situation was under control. At some point, a conversation arose between the friends about how much more ice the ice can hold. It wasn't a direct challenge or argument, but there was a desire in the air to prove that the fears were wrong. Daniel decided to take a few steps further from the shore, assuring the others that he knew what he was doing. He was wearing winter clothes, heavy boots, and a jacket, which are usually worn in severe cold. It was these clothes that would later play a fatal role. His first steps did not elicit any reaction. The ice did not crack or bend. This further strengthened his confidence. He walked a few meters, stopped, and turned around as if to show that everything was fine. At that moment, he heard a dull, cracking sound. The ice under his feet broke sharply, and Daniel went under almost instantly. Witnesses said he didn't even have time to scream. The cold water with a temperature close to freezing caused a shock that instantly stopped his breathing. In such conditions, the human body loses the ability to control movements in a few seconds. The friends rushed to the site of the collapse, but did not dare to get close for fear of another ice collapse. Someone lay down on his stomach, trying to reach the edge of the hole, but Daniel had already gone under. His heavy clothes quickly got wet and pulled him down. Even for a physically strong person, the chances of getting out on their own in such conditions are minimal. Emergency services were called almost immediately, but it took about 20 minutes for them to arrive. The rescuers worked carefully, using special equipment to avoid falling in themselves. Daniel's body was found the next day, a few meters from the site of the collapse, at the bottom of the lake. The official cause of death was drowning due to hypothermia after falling through the ice. The investigation found no technical or external factors. The ice was indeed thin due to weather conditions, and this had been warned in advance. Daniel's family later said that he was not trying to take a risk for fun or to impress. He just decided to check out what seemed obvious. But ice is one of the most treacherous surfaces. It can withstand a few people near the shore and break a few steps further. There was no rush, no alcohol, no extreme challenge in this story. Only a calm confidence that nothing will happen and one step that left no time to correct. All of these stories boil down to one thing. It was not a coincidence that was fatal, but a decision that seemed safe. Overconfidence, haste, and ignoring simple rules left no time to correct the mistake. The laws of physics and nature do not give second chances. If you are interested in such stories, please subscribe to the channel and like it.